First Officer Drekthar slouched in his command chair aboard the Galactic Alliance scout vessel Curiosity's Folly. His three-fingered hand lazily tapped against the armrest as he watched the blue-green planet slowly rotate on the main view screen. Earth, home to the universe's most notorious sleepers. Another boring patrol, he grumbled, his voice a gravelly rasp thanks to the 3 sets of vocal cords common to his species. Why do we even bother? The humans haven't stirred in centuries. Navigation Officer Pelora glanced up from her console, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with mild irritation. Because, sir, Galactic Protocol 7B clearly states that all Level 5 quarantine zones must be monitored at regular intervals. She recited the regulation with the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. I know the protocol, Drekthar snapped. What I don't understand is why we waste resources on a species that, by all accounts, is content to sleep their lives away while the rest of us get on with the business of running a galaxy. Science Officer Zondu, a tall, willowy being with 6 eyes arranged in a perfect hexagon, swiveled his chair around. With all due respect, sir, humans are fascinating creatures. Before their great hibernation, they were among the most ambitious, resourceful, and terrifyingly unpredictable species we'd ever encountered. And dangerous, muttered Security Chief Brack, a squat reptilian with armored plates covering most of his body. Let's not forget dangerous. Drekthar waved a dismissive hand. Ancient history. They have been dormant for over 500 standard cycles. Whatever made them special is long gone. Not according to the archives, Zondu countered. Have you read the accounts from the first contact period? Before they collectively decided to enter suspended animation, humans were expanding across their solar system at an alarming rate. Their technological development curve was nearly vertical. The Alliance was genuinely concerned they would achieve faster-than-light travel within a decade. And then they just stopped, Pelora said, her skin now pulsing with curious blues and purples. No warning, no explanation. One by one, they entered these self-induced hibernation states in their homes, their vehicles, their workplaces. Within a week, all 7 billion of them were simply asleep. Drekthar stretched, his exoskeleton creaking slightly. And we have been babysitting them ever since. Talk about galactic welfare. The ship's communicator chimed, and a holographic projection of their pilot, Quill, appeared over the central console. Unlike the others, Quill was a synthetic being, his metallic features arranged in a perpetual expression of mild amusement. Captain, Quill said, I have detected an anomaly on the planetary surface. Sector 7, what the locals once called New Zealand. Drekthar straightened in his chair, momentarily intrigued. What kind of anomaly? Energy signature. Faint but growing. Pattern matches old human technology, but with modifications. Zondu was already at his science station, 6 eyes blinking rapidly as data streamed across his screens. Confirmed, Captain. Something's activating down there. His voice rose with unmistakable excitement. I believe one of them might be waking up. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Even Drekthar, with all his affected boredom, felt a chill run through his segmented spine. That's impossible, Brack growled. The quarantine monitors would have alerted the entire Alliance. Unless, Pelora suggested, her skin now pulsing with alarmed reds. The system failed. Drekthar stood up, suddenly feeling the weight of his temporary command. The actual captain, Vorlok, was on shore leave, leaving him in charge of what should have been a routine patrol. Zondu, I want detailed scans. Brack, alert Alliance command. Pelora, calculate an orbital adjustment to position us directly over the anomaly. And me, sir, Quill's hologram asked, prepare a shuttle. If we need to investigate surface side, I want to be ready. As the crew sprang into action, Drekthar returned to his chair, his earlier boredom replaced by a gnawing anxiety. Everyone in the Alliance knew the unofficial rule, don't wake the humans. Not because it was forbidden, but because no one knew what would happen if they did. 3 hours later, Drekthar found himself strapped into a seat aboard the Curiosity's Folly surface shuttle, along with Zondu and Brack. Alliance protocol demanded a minimum 3-officer team for any surface reconnaissance, and he wasn't about to send his subordinates into potential danger without him. Remind me again why we're doing this instead of waiting for the specialist team? Brak grumbled, checking his stun baton for the 5th time. Because, Drekthar explained with forced patience, Alliance Command estimates their nearest response vessel is 14 cycles away. By then, whatever's happening could escalate beyond containment. Besides, Zandu added, his scientific equipment carefully arranged around him. Aren't you curious? This could be the first human awakening in centuries. Brak's scales darkened in the reptilian equivalent of a scowl. Curiosity is what gets exploration teams killed. Just ask the Proxima expedition. Those were completely different circumstances, Zandu protested. Were they? Unknown variables, potentially hostile environment, a species with documented violent tendencies. Enough, Drekthar interrupted. We are following standard protocols. Observe and report only. No contact unless absolutely necessary. The shuttle shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere, the thermal shields glowing bright orange against the viewports. Quill's voice came through the intercom, unnaturally calm as always. Entering lower atmosphere now. Stealth systems engaged. Local weather patterns will provide additional cover. We should reach the anomaly coordinates in approximately 7 minutes. Drekthar nodded, though the pilot couldn't see him. Any changes to the energy signature? Yes, sir. It's intensified by roughly 300% since our initial detection. And there was a pause, unusual for the typically prompt synthetic. I'm detecting movement. Zandu's 6 eyes widened simultaneously. Movement? You mean a human is definitely awake, Quill confirmed. And based on these readings, they are quite active. Brak muttered something that the translator couldn't, or wouldn't, process, but Drekthar got the gist. The security chief was not pleased. The shuttle descended through cloud cover into a light rainfall. Below them stretched a landscape of vibrant green hills and dense forests, largely reclaimed by nature after centuries of minimal human activity. The Alliance had maintained some of their infrastructure, partly out of scientific interest, partly from the uncertain belief that the humans might someday need it again. There, Zandu pointed at one of the screens. That structure. It appears to be some kind of research facility. Drekthar peered at the image. The building was mostly underground, with only a few structures visible on the surface. According to the overlay data, it had been a human scientific installation focused on energy research. Set us down half a kilometer away, he ordered. We will approach on foot. The shuttle landed with barely a whisper in a clearing surrounded by tall trees. As the rear hatch opened, Earth's atmosphere, rich in oxygen and heavy with moisture, filled the cabin. Their environmental suits automatically adjusted, filtering out any potentially harmful pathogens. Remember, Drekthar said as they disembarked, we are here to observe, document everything, but maintain distance. The forest around them was alive with sounds, creatures that had evolved or adapted during humanity's long sleep. The rain had tapered to a light drizzle, and sunlight broke through gaps in the clouds, creating dappled patterns on the forest floor. Beautiful planet, Zandu remarked, his scientific equipment already recording everything in sight. It's easy to see why the Preservation Council fought so hard to protect it. Let's hope we don't ruin their efforts, Brak muttered, taking point with practiced efficiency despite his bulky frame. They moved through the undergrowth toward the facility, each step carefully placed. Earth gravity was slightly stronger than the artificial gravity on their ship, and Drekthar could feel the extra weight in his joints. As they approached the perimeter of the installation, Zandu's equipment began emitting a soft, pulsing alert. The energy signature is fluctuating wildly, he whispered, though there was no real need for quiet. Their suits could mask sound if necessary. It's almost as if it's searching for something, or someone, Brak added ominously. Facility's exterior was largely reclaimed by vegetation, with vines and moss covering what had once been sterile walls. A set of heavy doors stood partially open, as if someone had forced them after centuries of disuse. Those marks are fresh, Brak observed, pointing to scratches in the weathered metal. Made within the last few hours. Drekthar felt a twist of apprehension in his primary digestive tract. Zondu life signs? The science officer consulted his scanner. One definite human biosignature inside. Active and moving. Aggressive. Impossible to determine from these readings. Heart rate elevated. Adrenaline present. But that could simply indicate confusion or stress rather than hostile intent. Drekthar weighed their options. Alliance protocol was clear. Avoid direct contact with quarantine species unless necessary for their protection or the greater galactic good. But if a human had truly awakened after centuries of hibernation, there was no telling what state they might be in, physically or mentally. We proceed inside, he decided finally. Maintain stealth protocols. I want to see this human before we decide on further action. Brack looked like he wanted to object, but nodded curtly. The security chief might question decisions, but once made, he followed them without hesitation. The interior of the facility was dark, lit only by emergency lights that had somehow remained functional through the centuries. The Alliance preservation teams had maintained critical systems on the planet, but with minimal intervention. This technology is primitive, Zonda whispered, examining a console as they passed, but ingenious in its simplicity. They followed the energy signature deeper into the facility, descending several levels via stairs since the elevators were non-functional. The air grew cooler and drier, preserved by environmental systems that had outlasted their creator's consciousness. The signature led them to a large chamber filled with equipment that even Zondu couldn't immediately identify. In the center stood a human. Drekthar had seen images, of course. Every Alliance officer had studied xenobiology, but nothing prepared him for the actual sight. The human was taller than expected, with a frame that somehow managed to look both fragile and formidable. It wore tattered clothing that might once have been a uniform and was furiously working at a central console. Subject appears disoriented but purposeful, Zondu murmured into his recorder. Engaging in complex technical tasks despite presumed cognitive impairment from extended hibernation. The human suddenly stopped and turned, looking directly at their position despite their stealth fields. I know you are there, it said in a voice rough from disuse. Your cloaking technology hums at a frequency just within human hearing range. Rather sloppy design, if you ask me. Drekthar felt his secondary heart skip a beat. Direct communication violated at least 3 different protocols, but the situation had clearly moved beyond standard procedures. After a moment's hesitation, he deactivated his stealth field. Zondu and Brack followed suit, the latter positioning himself slightly forward in a protective stance. The human showed remarkably little surprise at their appearance. No, based on the physical characteristics, Drekthar's translator suggested the appropriate pronoun was he. Simply raised an eyebrow. Interesting, the human said. You are not what I expected. You were expecting aliens. Drekthar asked. Unable to keep the surprise from his voice, the human gave a short, barking sound that the translator identified as laughter, though it contained little humor. Of course. Why else would I have woken up? This statement raised so many questions that Drekthar wasn't sure where to begin. Fortunately, Zondu had no such hesitation. You woke intentionally? But the entire human species entered hibernation simultaneously. Our records indicate it was a collective decision. The human turned back to the console. Not exactly simultaneous, and not exactly voluntary for everyone. But that's ancient history now, isn't it? He tapped a few commands, and the machinery around them hummed louder. The important question is why you are here now. We detected an energy anomaly, Drekthar said cautiously. As per our monitoring protocols, yes, your precious protocols, the human interrupted. The Galactic Alliance has always been fond of its rulebooks. But that doesn't explain why a simple scout vessel is responding instead of a proper research team. Brack stepped forward menacingly. How do you know what type of vessel we came from? The human smiled, an expression that Drekthar found unsettling despite its apparent friendliness. I have been monitoring your communications since you entered orbit. Your encryption is good, but not good enough. This was impossible. The human technology they'd observed couldn't possibly have detected let alone decrypted Alliance transmissions. Unless you have been awake longer than just today, Drekthar realized. The human smile widened. Give the officer a prize. He turned fully toward them, leaning against the console with casual confidence. Dr. Ajax Fenrir, formerly of the Earth Unified Research Division. I have been awake for approximately 3 of your standard years, though time measurement gets a bit fuzzy when you are the only conscious being on a planet. That's impossible, Brack growled. Our monitoring systems are designed to detect mass awakenings, not individuals. Fenrir finished for him. Especially not individuals who know how to mask their biological signatures. I helped design the monitoring systems, after all, before we all decided to take our little nap. Zondu was practically vibrating with scientific excitement. But why? Why do humans enter hibernation in the first place? And why are you the only one awake? Fenrir's expression darkened. Those are complicated questions, officer. And I'm afraid we don't have time for a proper history lesson. He gestured to the equipment around them. Because in approximately 15 minutes, this facility is going to transmit a signal that will wake every human on the planet simultaneously. Drekthar felt as if the artificial gravity had suddenly increased tenfold. His exoskeleton creaked as he reflexively took a step backward. You can't, he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. The protocols, the quarantine, were established by mutual agreement between humanity and the Alliance, Fenrir finished, turning back to his console. An agreement that has been violated. Brack's hand moved to his stun baton. Step away from the console, human. Fenrir didn't even look up. I wouldn't do that if I were you. This system is key to my vital signs. Any sudden drop in heart rate or brain activity will trigger an immediate broadcast. He's bluffing, Brack growled, but he didn't advance further. Zondu's 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession. Dr. Fenrir, perhaps if you explain the situation, we could find a diplomatic solution. The Alliance has always maintained peaceful relations with humanity. A harsh laugh escaped Fenrir's lips. Peaceful? Is that what you call it? He jabbed at something on the screen. While we slept, trusting in the agreement, your alliance has been systematically stripping our solar system of resources. That's not true, Drekthar protested. All resource extraction follows the preservation guidelines. Earth itself is completely protected. Earth, yes. But what about the mining operations on Mars? The gas harvesting stations around Jupiter? The complete dismantling of Mercury for its mineral content? Fenrir's voice rose with each accusation. Did you think we wouldn't notice? That we wouldn't have monitoring systems in place? Drekthar exchanged uncomfortable glances with his officers. The human wasn't wrong about the extraction operations, but those had been approved by the Galactic Council centuries ago, after extensive environmental impact studies showed no threat to Earth's ecosystem. Those operations were deemed necessary for galactic infrastructure, Drekthar explained, and they were conducted under the assumption that humanity had abandoned those territories. We didn't abandon anything, Fenrir snapped. We entered hibernation to solve a specific problem. Our population had grown too large, our resource consumption too great. Rather than destroy our planet fighting over what remained, we chose to sleep while automated systems restored Earth's balance. He gestured toward the ceiling, presumably indicating the verdant world above. And it worked. Earth has healed. But our colonies throughout the solar system were meant to be preserved, not plundered. Zonda stepped forward cautiously. Doctor, I understand your anger, but waking 7 billion humans without preparation would be catastrophic. Your infrastructure has degraded. Your food production systems are minimal. Your society would collapse within days. Which is why I've spent 3 years preparing, Fenrir countered. Reactivating automated farming systems, ensuring water purification plants are operational, bringing power grids back online sector by sector. He shook his head. We won't wake to a paradise, but we won't starve either. But why wake everyone? Drekthar asked. Why not petition the Alliance directly? As an individual representative would be ignored, Fenrir interrupted. Or worse, study for the remainder of my natural life. No, the only way to ensure humanity has a voice is for all of us to speak at once. The console emitted a series of tones, and Finner checked a readout. 12 minutes to broadcast. I suggest you decide quickly where you stand in this historical moment, officers. Brack growled low in his throat. This is an act of aggression against the Alliance. We cannot allow it. Technically, Zondu interjected. It's their right to wake whenever they choose. The quarantine was voluntary on their part. But the consequences, Drekthar began, are significant, Fenrir agreed, but unavoidable at this point. The real question is whether the Alliance will treat a newly awakened humanity as equals or as a threat. Drekthar felt the weight of the decision crushing him. This was far beyond the authority of a first officer on a routine patrol. But with no time to consult Alliance command, the choice was his alone. Dr. Fenrir, he said carefully, I propose a compromise. Our ship can transmit a message to Alliance headquarters at speeds your equipment cannot match. Allow us to inform them of the situation before you wake everyone. Give them time to prepare assistance, not opposition. Fenrir seemed to consider this, his fingers hovering over the console. And what guarantee do I have that your message won't simply call for military intervention? You can compose the message yourself, Drekthar offered, or accompany us to our vessel as a representative of humanity. A hostage, you mean? A diplomat, Drekthar corrected. The first human diplomat to the Alliance in 5 centuries. Think of what that could mean for your people. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Fenrir's face. In the awakening protocol, delay it. Not cancel, just delay. Give diplomacy a chance before you force confrontation. Fenrir's fingers danced across the console, and the humming of the machinery decreased slightly. I have extended the countdown to 6 hours. That should be sufficient time to reach your headquarters and gauge their initial reaction. Brack relaxed visibly, though his hand remained near his weapon. Zondu was already furiously taking notes on his device. A wise decision, Doctor, Drekthar said, relief evident in his voice. The Alliance has evolved much since your species began hibernation. I believe you will find. A deafening alarm suddenly cut through the chamber, red lights flashing from every corner. What is that? Drekthar demanded, his translator struggling with the sudden cacophony. Fenrir was back at the console, his movements frantic. Perimeter breach. Something's entered the facility, something big. He pulled up security footage on a screen. What they saw sent chills through all 4 beings. Moving through the upper levels of the facility was a squad of heavily armed figures in armor that Drekthar recognized all too well. Kavak's Mercenary Legion, Brack said, confirming Drekthar's fears. Elite hunters. They are not Alliance. Drekthar quickly told Fenrir. We didn't call them. I swear it. Then who did? Fenrir demanded. But the answer was already forming in Drekthar's mind. The resource extraction operations, he said grimly. They're not all Alliance-sanctioned. Some corporations operate in legal gray areas, using mercenaries to protect their interests. And a human awakening threatens those interests, Fenrir concluded, his expression hardening, which means they have been monitoring my activities as well. He turned back to the console. So much for diplomacy. Wait. Drekthar moved toward him. If you trigger the awakening now, you will put all humans in danger. These mercenaries won't hesitate to eliminate threats. Fenrir's hands stilled over the controls. What do you suggest, officer? Because in about 3 minutes, those thugs will reach this level, and I doubt they are here to negotiate. Brack had already moved to the chamber's entrance, securing the door with a portable force field from his equipment belt. That will slow them down, but not stop them. Zondu was examining the facility schematics he'd downloaded earlier. There appears to be an emergency exit tunnel approximately 30 meters from our position. It leads to a surface access point half a kilometer from the main structure. Near our shuttle, Drekthar realized. Dr. Fenrir, come with us. We can get you off planet. Present your case directly to the Alliance Council. Fenrir hesitated, looking back at the console. And leave the rest of humanity defenseless? What happens when these mercenaries realize they can't get to me? How many hibernation pods will they destroy in retaliation? The pods are protected by international treaties, Zondu began. Treaties mean nothing to people who hire Kavak's legionnaires, Brack interrupted. The human is right to be concerned. An explosion rocked the facility, dust raining from the ceiling. The mercenaries were moving faster than expected. We are out of time, Drekthar said. Doctor, we need to leave. Now. Fenrir made his decision. His fingers flew across the console one last time before he stepped away. I have initiated a partial awakening protocol. Instead of everyone at once, it will gradually wake humans in strategic locations. Military personnel, government leaders, key scientists. People who can coordinate and protect others. How many? Zondu asked. About 5 million to start. Enough to establish a defensive presence, but not so many that our resources will be immediately overwhelmed. Fenrir reached beneath the console and pulled out a small device, which he tucked into his tattered uniform. And I have downloaded the command codes. The full awakening can still be triggered remotely if necessary. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered momentarily. Move, Brack ordered, already heading toward the emergency exit Zondu had identified. They're using thermal charges on the security doors. They ran through dimly lit corridors, Fenrir leading with surprising agility for someone who had been in hibernation until recently. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them, the heavy thud of armored boots and the occasional burst of energy weapons being discharged. Why are they shooting? Zonda gasped as they rounded a corner. Aren't they trying to capture you? Dead or alive makes little difference to the Kavaks, Brack growled. Dead is often easier. They reached a heavy door marked with faded emergency symbols. Fenrir placed his palm against a scanner that remarkably still functioned after centuries. Genetic lock, he explained as the door slid open. Only authorized personnel could access the emergency routes. The tunnel beyond was narrow and utilitarian, with strip lighting that activated as they entered. They moved as quickly as the confined space allowed, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter as the tunnel sloped upward toward the surface. Even if we reach your shuttle, Fenrir said between breaths, the mercenaries will have their own ship. They will pursue us into orbit. Let them try, Drekthar replied grimly. The Curiosity's Folly may be a scout vessel, but it's still Alliance military technology. Those mercenaries are used to bullying unarmed research outposts, not engaging warships. After what seemed like an eternity in the claustrophobic passage, they reached a ladder leading to a surface hatch. Brack climbed first, weapon ready, and signaled the all-clear after checking the surroundings. They emerged into the fading daylight of late afternoon, the forest around them peaceful despite the danger at their backs. Their shuttle was visible through the trees, approximately 300 meters away. No signs of mercenary presence topside yet, Brack reported after scanning the area. They may not know about this exit, or they are waiting by our shuttle, Drekthar countered. Quill, do you read me? He spoke into his communicator. The synthetic pilot's voice came through clearly. Yes, First Officer. I detect your position and am monitoring multiple unidentified hostiles within the facility. What are your orders? Prep for immediate departure. And be advised we have diplomatic passenger. Understood. I have taken the liberty of activating our defensive countermeasures. The shuttle is secured. They moved through the forest as quietly as possible, Brack on point and Zondu helping the still-adapting Fenrir navigate the uneven terrain. The human was in remarkable condition for someone recently emerged from hibernation, but centuries of inactivity had taken their toll. Your species is quite resilient, Zondu observed quietly. Most beings would require extensive rehabilitation after such prolonged metabolic suspension. Fenrir managed a thin smile. We designed the hibernation process specifically to minimize muscle atrophy and neural degradation. And I have had 3 years to recover. Still impressive, the science officer insisted. The scientific achievements of humanity were not exaggerated in our historical records. Save the xenobiological admiration for later, Brack hissed from ahead. We have got movement at the shuttle perimeter. They crouched low, observing the clearing where their vessel waited. 2 armored figures were circling the shuttle, weapons ready, but unable to approach closer due to the defensive field Quill had activated. Just two, Drekthar murmured. The others must still be in the facility. We're approaching from another vector, Brack warned. We should assume we are surrounded. Fenrir reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. I might have something that can help. Old human technology, but still effective. He manipulated several controls on the device. It will create a sonic disruption that should disorient them long enough for us to reach the shuttle. Their armor will have auditory dampeners, Brack objected. Trust me, Fenrir said with a grim smile. This frequency was specifically designed to penetrate Kavak's battle systems. We had previous encounters with their kind before hibernation. Before Drekthar could question this surprising revelation, Fenrir activated the device. There was no sound perceptible to any of them, but the effect on the mercenaries was immediate and dramatic. Both armored figures clutched at their helmets, staggering as if struck. Now, Drekthar ordered, and they broke cover, sprinting for the shuttle. They were halfway across the clearing when energy bolts began ripping through the air around them. A squad of mercenaries had emerged from the trees on the opposite side, apparently less affected by Fenrir's device. Keep moving, Brack shouted, turning to provide covering fire with his own weapon. The security chief's shots were precise, forcing the mercenaries to dive for cover. Zondu reached the shuttle first, the ramp already lowering to receive them. Drekthar pushed Fenrir ahead of him, then turned to cover Brack's retreat. An energy bolt struck perilously close to the security chief, showering him with superheated dirt. Brack stumbled but kept firing as he backed toward the shuttle. Come on, Drekthar urged as he provided additional covering fire. Just as Brack reached the ramp, a mercenary appeared from a flanking position, weapon leveled directly at the security chief's unprotected back. Fenrir, already inside the shuttle, shouted a warning and lunged forward. He crashed into Brack, sending both of them tumbling into the vessel as energy bolts sizzled through the space they had occupied a moment before. Drekthar hit the ramp retraction control as he dove inside. The shuttle's hatch ceiling shut behind him. Immediately, the craft's engines roared to life. Everyone secure. Quill's voice came over the intercom as the shuttle lurched upward. Drekthar picked himself up from the deck, surveying his team. Zondu appeared unharmed, already strapping himself into a seat. Brack and Fenrir were disentangling themselves from their collision, the security chief looking surprised and suspicious at the human's intervention. We are intact, Drekthar confirmed. Get us back to the ship, maximum speed. The shuttle shot upward, breaking through the cloud cover with enough force to press them all into their seats. Through the viewports, Drekthar could see energy weapons firing from the ground, most missing wildly as Quill executed evasive maneuvers. Mercenary vessel detected, Quill reported, launching from concealed position 5 kilometers west of the facility. Intercept course projected. Can we outrun them? Drekthar asked. Negative. Their vessel appears to be a Kavak Striker-class pursuit ship. We will reach the Curiosity's folly before they intercept, but only by approximately 90 seconds. Fenrir secured himself in a seat, his expression thoughtful. Your pilot's a synthetic? Yes, Drekthar confirmed, seeing no reason to hide the obvious. One of our most advanced models. The human nodded slowly. That's fortunate. I may have a way to deal with our pursuers, but I will need direct access to your ship's communication systems. Brack immediately tensed. Absolutely not. Hear him out, Drekthar ordered, strapping himself in as the shuttle continued its rapid ascent. Fenrir leaned forward. The partial awakening protocol I initiated prioritizes military personnel. By now, several hundred human defense installations around the planet will be reactivating, including orbital platforms, orbital weapons platforms. Zondu asked, his 6 eyes widening. Our scans detected no such technology. Because they were designed to be undetectable, Fenrir explained. After the resource appropriation began, several of us working in secret developed a defensive network that could remain dormant until needed. If I can send the proper activation codes through your ship's transmitter, we can discourage our mercenary friends without bloodshed. Drekthar hesitated. Allowing a quarantined species access to Alliance communication systems violated multiple protocols. But then again, so did everything else that had happened in the past hour. How do we know these platforms won't target our vessel as well? Brack demanded. Because I will tell them not to, Fenrir said simply. The system requires authentication from a human operator with proper clearance, which at the moment is only me. The shuttle broke free of Earth's atmosphere, the blackness of space opening before them. In the distance, the sleek form of the Curiosity's Folly awaited, while behind them, the mercenary vessel was rapidly gaining ground. Decision time, First Officer, Quill announced. The mercenary ship will be in weapons range 30 seconds after we dock. Director met Fenrir's Geish. The human's eyes held a challenge, but also something else, a weary determination that transcended species differences. If I wanted to destroy Alliance ships, Fenrir said quietly, I wouldn't have bothered trying to save your security chief back there. That at least was true. And ultimately, Drekthar realized this human represented a species that had once been respected members of the galactic community, members who now had legitimate grievances against that same community. Once we are aboard, Drekthar decided, you will have access to our communications array. Under supervision, the shuttle docked with the Curiosity's Folly with practiced precision. As they hurried to the bridge, Pelora greeted them with obvious relief. First Officer, Alliance Command has been attempting to contact us. They are demanding updates on the situation. Tell them it's complicated, Drekthar responded, gesturing Fenrir toward the communication station. And about to get more so, Fenrir's fingers moved across the unfamiliar console with surprising adaptability. Your technology has advanced, but the underlying principles remain consistent, he murmured as he worked. I'm broadcasting the authentication codes now. On the main view screen, the mercenary vessel grew larger as it approached. Its weapons systems were visibly powering up, energy signatures spiking. Incoming transmission from the mercenary vessel, Pelora reported. They are demanding we surrender the human or face destruction. Stall them, Drekthar ordered. Dr. Fenrir, how much longer? Just a few more there. Fenrir stepped back from the console. Authentication complete. Defense network activating. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. The mercenary ship continued its approach, now close enough that individual weapon ports were visible on its hull. Then, seemingly from nowhere, a dozen sleek orbital platforms decloaked around Earth's atmosphere. Each was clearly of human design, but incorporated technology that even Alliance engineers would find impressive. By the void, Pelora whispered, how do we never detect these? Because we weren't meant to, Zondu replied, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his concern. Remarkable cloaking technology. The platforms oriented toward the mercenary vessel, weapon systems charging but not yet firing. A moment later, Pelora's console chimed. The mercenary ship is breaking off pursuit, she reported, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. They're retreating at maximum velocity. Fenrir allowed himself a small smile. The platforms transmitted a simple message. The humans are awake. This solar system is once again under their protection. Leave now or be destroyed. Evidently, they chose the sensible option. A heavy silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just awakening. It was reclaiming its place in the galaxy, armed with technology that had somehow advanced during its long sleep. You were never truly hibernating, were you? Drekthar asked finally. Not all of you, at least. Fenrir sighed, suddenly looking every bit his actual age. Most are, but a select few of us maintain a rotation. One awake while thousands slept, then switching, watching, monitoring, developing, preparing for the day when we would need to protect ourselves again. From the Alliance, Brack demanded. From anyone who would take advantage of a sleeping species, Fenrir countered. The Alliance was not always the benevolent organization you believe it to be, Officer Brack. When humans first encountered your people, there were factions that saw us as a threat to be contained rather than equals to be welcomed. Drekthar moved to the captain's chair, feeling the weight of galactic history shifting around him. So what happens now? You have awakened your military and defense systems. Will full awakening follow? That depends, Fenrir said, turning to face him fully, on what message you send to your superiors. Will you tell them that humanity is a threat to be subdued, or a wounded party seeking justice and reconciliation? Drekthar considered his options carefully. Alliance protocols were clear about threats to galactic security, but they were equally clear about the rights of sentient species to self-determination. I will tell them the truth, he decided finally, that humanity has legitimate grievances regarding resource appropriation in their solar system, that they have demonstrated both the capability to defend themselves and the restraint not to strike first, and that I recommend immediate diplomatic engagement at the highest levels. Fenrir nodded slowly. A fair assessment, and I will recommend to our awakened leadership that we approach these negotiations in good faith. He glanced at the view screen, where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. After all, we have had 500 years to sleep on our differences. Perhaps a time for a fresh start. Zondu stepped forward, his scientific curiosity unable to be contained any longer. But Dr. Fenrir, you still haven't explained why humanity chose hibernation in the first place. What problem were you trying to solve that required such a drastic measure? Fenrir's expression turned enigmatic. That Officer Zondu is a story for another day. Let's just say that some threats come from beyond even the Alliance's borders, and sometimes the best defense is to make yourself very, very quiet for a very long time. He turned back to the view screen, watching as more defense platforms revealed themselves in Earth orbit. Dozens, then hundreds. A sleeping giant had awakened, cautious but prepared. For now, Fenrir continued, humanity would be content with the return of our solar system and recognition of our sovereignty. The rest, well, the universe is vast and history is long. We have learned the value of patience. Drekthar nodded slowly, realizing that the routine patrol he had so recently complained about would now be recorded in history databases across the galaxy. The day the humans woke up, the day everything changed again. Pelora, he ordered, set course for Alliance headquarters, maximum speed, and open a priority channel to the Supreme Council. He glanced at Fenrir, who stood tall despite his tattered clothing and the weight of centuries. It seems we have important news to deliver. As the Curiosity's folly turned away from Earth, Drekthar couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the deceptively peaceful planet might hold, and what it would mean for the galaxy now that the universe's most notorious sleepers had finally opened their eyes. In the observation lounge, Fenrir watched his homeworld recede, a complex mixture of emotions playing across his face. 500 years of careful planning had led to this moment. The awakening had begun, not as they had originally intended, but perhaps exactly as it needed to. Ready or not, he whispered to the stars, humanity has returned to the stage. And this time we won't be caught napping.